Today we are going to kind of juggle between two mixes that I did here. In this first one I'll show you, I used 100% free plugins and some stock. So if you're using Reaper or if you're using like Pro Tools and you kind of want to like replicate the same idea, you could just use like the stock built-in plugins like the EQ and stuff like that. I think compression and EQ are the only ones I really used that were stock plugins. I'll go ahead and play this song, at least some of it, because in the end I'll do kind of like, I'll play the one, maybe we'll do the free one first, and then we'll play the like paid plugin one at the end. So we'll just do a couple little like snippets of this. So for bass, I struggled a little bit because I was using ample bass, but I believe it only goes down to D1, and this song is in drop A. That was the first problem. Second problem, every once in a while, this plugin kind of glitches out. So all that being said, we'll just ignore that. What I actually used for bass is I went back and revisited the Moto bass, and let's just go ahead and solo this so we can hear the tone kind of on its own. And all I've really done here is I went, changed this to 5 strings because that allows you a little bit more area here. Actually, I'll show you. So if you start with 4, the lowest you can go is D, and then with 5, it opens up to A, which is perfect because that's the tuning we're in. Drop tuning is on because for some reason that's the difference between B and A. This was stock. This is only an option if you click it. You know, you have to like pay for it or whatever. None of this I changed. None of electronics. None of these extra controls I've changed. The only thing I've done was slide this back from 6 down to 1.8. And it gives you more of like a twangier feel to it. So actually, let's go ahead and do this. We'll take every effect off of bass except for Moto. So that's how it's going to sound completely stock, just with these small settings and adjustments that I've done. So next up, I was recommended by my buddy Brokeneck about this one, the S Drive by Modern Music Solutions. And I won't lie, it took me a little bit to get used to it, to figure out like a good setup. And honestly, what I did was just went to factory presets and the metal clank. For some reason, if you do not have those settings and you want to copy this, go ahead and screenshot that. But it should come with it when you download it. So once again, the raw bass. And then with S Drive with these settings. And then EQ, I pretty much do the same thing for all my EQ for bass. Actually, that's a lie. This one, because it's more along the lines of like old school death metal, I only put a high pass at 60 hertz because I do actually want some of that mud left in there. And then I did a low pass at 2500 hertz just to kind of reduce as much high end as I could. And I know it sounds kind of like contradicting, but I wanted the mud and not so much the clarity, if that makes sense. And then the only other effect, once again, another built-in Reaper plugin here, is Recomp. And I've just got a basic setup for sidechaining. And if we go ahead and enable the kick, I've got roughly 2 decibels of reduction. So it's ducking just enough when the double bass kicks in. And that's really all I wanted for it. And that is pretty much all I've got for bass. For drums, we're going back using a classic here for the free kit. MT Power, a name that is often forgotten. The only thing I've done for this is routed everything out to its own channel. So kick, snare, hat, toms, ride, cymbals. I've made my own room mic, or room mic if you will. And it's just something that I've kind of been doing in drum kits that don't have their own room mic. It's just some weird thing I've come up with. I'll high pass it at 400 hertz and low pass at around 1500. Sometimes I'll bump this up to like 4K, but This one I wanted more of a, like you're hearing this kind of like from the back rooms kind of vibe to it. And then I've just pretty much resent everything into its own drum bus so that I could control the volume with that after I've got my levels adjusted. And drums on their own are going to sound like this. And before anybody gives me shit for that, I did kind of want them a little bit more in your face because I wanted to have more of that like angry death metal pissed off drummer just kind of, you know, smacking everything, and kind of had like an old school death metal mix inspired feeling, I guess, and just wanted the drums cranked up in this one. So for kick, all I've got is a compressor on here to kind of tighten it up once it goes super fast double bass. Really nothing to it. I thought I had something on snare, but I didn't. You saw what I had for room mic, and that's really it for drums, honestly. Now to arguably the most exciting part, guitars. So we're busting out the old Ignite Amps Emissary because this thing is just awesome if I'm being honest. And then like I've done in a different video, I always put this on the 421 mic at a 45-degree angle. That's the mic I've really found that sounds really good for like kind of like an old school feel. And then for EQ, got a high pass at 100 hertz and then cutting out the mud at 250. And we'll go ahead and take EQ off so you can hear it. And then with it EQ'd. Actually, let me find kind of like a chugging part so you can hear the low end. So it tightens it up just a little bit. Nothing crazy, just a couple cuts just to make it sit better. If we go ahead and listen to it with bass. Actually, let's just put both guitar channels on. It helps bass cut through a little bit. And then finally, what I've got on the master chain here, you can ignore these last two. This one's just so you can hear everything that's going on in Reaper. And then this is just kind of so I know where we're at volume wise. But I've got a stereo width just loaded up. This JS plugin, it's also a stock Reaper plugin. And then I've got a kilohertz clipper. All I've done is just -1 decibel and then a limiter -0.1 just to kind of tame everything. And a lot of that kind of like special sauce you hear in there is the stereo width, just kind of making everything sound huge. And yeah, that's pretty much it for everything in the free one. Like I said, at the end of the video, I'll probably play this one first all the way through, and then the fully, you know, paid plugin one right after that. So you'll get to hear this followed by the updated one. So let's just go ahead and jump into the other one. And we'll do pretty much the same thing we did in the other one and just kind of play like a couple little snippets of this and then go over everything. So right off the bat in this one, you can hear everything is just like right out there. So we'll kind of work backwards again and do everything how I did in the first. So bass, I'm running Gin bass on the mid channel. So it's not the extreme one, just this mid. String noise all the way down, muting noise all the way down, just so it's the most clear you'll hear it. Using the growler on this because, man, honestly, I love this plugin so much, and it's free. I know this is supposed to be like a paid one, but we'll just count the bass as the paid thing, and then this is just something I use to kind of like beef it up. So we'll go ahead and turn all this off. Solo bass. So pretty strong right out the gate, and then with growler, gives us some of that nice distortion. I turned treble down a little bit. I turned growl off, and I'm just running the default IR1. And then I put mix down to 30 because I want it present, but I don't want it like this. That's just way too much going on in my opinion. 30% in my opinion is like the perfect blend. And then EQ, something kind of similar here, 60 hertz. 2500 hertz, and that's just going to clear up, you know, a lot of the top end sizzle. And then, like I said, I still want to keep the low end a little bit dirty just because I'm going for that kind of sound. So we'll play it without it real quick. And then with. It is way, way, way more tamed, but that's kind of what we're going for. And then same thing, recomp. This is probably my personal favorite just for side chaining, just because it's so easy. Once you figure out how to do it, it just makes it super easy. And same thing, side chain the kick to this. I think I forgot to actually adjust that properly. There we go. I don't know how that got messed up. I guess I forgot to hit save. But yeah, that's pretty much it for bass. So for drums, we're using good old trusty Deviant drums. Honestly, for this kit, what I've done is just loaded up stock everything. And then for snare, I'll change it out to the Mapex High open snare. And then I'll tune it up about halfway from 0. And then when I go to EQ it, I'll boost roughly 5 decibels around the 2K mark. And that gives it like that nice snap. So let's solo drums. Now for kick, compressing it just to kind of tame it when it gets fast. EQ, I've got a little something different here. I've tried to get a lot of the low end under 40 hertz out, so I've just high passed it at 40 hertz. I've got a small boost at 60 because I really wanted a lot more thump. I've cut out a little bit of the midsection, 414 hertz, -4. It's a pretty significant cut, but I wanted a lot of that middle area just kind of like chopped out. And then I've got a low pass at 12,000 just because I really don't need anything above there personally for this one. And then snare, I'm not sure why this was here. We can just ignore that. High pass at 80 hertz and a little bit of a boost at 3,500. And let's see if we can tell the difference here. We'll just disable or actually, let's do this. And then with it, just gives it a little tiny bit more snap. Everything else, hat, toms, ride, or no, I'm sorry, ride, I did do something too. I've just got OTT on there because it wasn't cutting through. Let me see if I can show you without it real quick. The ride gets a little bit lost when the full mix is in play, but if we turn OTT on, it raises a lot of the high end, and I've only got it at a 25% depth. Just because in these like kind of blasty parts, I really love when the ride stands out in a mix. But it's all personal preference. It honestly sounds good without it. But like I said, I like that shit loud. So what we'll do is actually we'll lower this a little bit, but keep OTT on for the high end. I just think it sounds good, kind of loud. Same thing for the room here. I've kind of created my own 400 hertz, 3000 hertz. So a little bit different than the last one. And then I've just got a, reverb all the way down as far as size goes in this kilohertz plugin. And then the mix at 50%. Just so when we play the room here, so let's do it without reverb. And then with it on. Kind of sounds like you're in like a small warehouse, but I've got that sitting a little bit further down. So it's kind of added as like just an extra little effect to the drums. So if we listen to drums without that. Versus with it on. Just makes the drum sound completely huge. And then finally, we've got guitar. So good old trusty Gojira X, once it loads. There we go. So the first thing you might notice, transpose. It's technically because this guitar is in drop G, and I've just had to pitch shift it up just to drop A. Don't ask me why, it's just laziness. Gain is about 4, bass is a little bit up, mids kind of scooped a little bit, treble up a little bit, presence up, depth up, just a little bit there, just to kind of like notch it right in the right direction. I've got no boost, no nothing. Stock setup here. Everything else literally is just stock. And then for EQ, I've rolled everything out under 100 hertz. I've got a dip at 250 to clear up the mud. And then on this one, I added a little bit at 4,000. So we'll just go ahead and I'll show you everything without EQ. If we take the 4,000 off and show you everything cutting the mud out. Versus adding a little bit of that sizzle. Because remember, this is supposed to be like an old school death metal inspired tone. So it's supposed to sound a little bit more sizzly. And I've got that for both guitars. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think pretty much the same thing just on the mastering chain. I had saturation on here, but I decided not to use it. We'll just take that out. Stereo width, same thing, just stock plug-in. Limiter, negative 0.1. Clipper, I've got that at negative 1 decibel. And once again, this so I can monitor where we're at loudness-wise, and then this so you can hear everything. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up. This is really just to show you the difference between what my mixes personally sound like with a bunch of paid plugins versus if you just decided to use a bunch of free stuff. So now that we've gotten all the information out of the way, I'll just go ahead and play these back to back and hope you all enjoyed it.